This video is brought to you by Saily, the one eSIM for every trip. In 1953, this girl became the victim of Philippines' most disturbing demonic possession. She was said to have been bitten and tormented by two demonic entities for days. She called them the Thing. When doctors examined her, they saw with their very own eyes scratches and bite marks physically manifesting before their eyes. How is that possible? Then came American pastor Lester Sumrall. In front of dozens of witnesses, he tried casting the demons out of Clarita, and that's when all hell broke loose. More bite marks appeared, and she started convulsing and even spoke a language that she shouldn't have known. But who was Clarita Villanova? How did she end up where she was? Did Pastor Lester Sumrall actually have a secret motive? And how did all of these events converge to make this one of Asia's most disturbing demonic possession cases ever? Tonight, we are diving into the mysterious case of Clarita Villanova, and at the end of the video, we'll go through some theories that, if true, completely changes what this story actually is. Today's video is kindly sponsored by Saily, and it's the one eSIM that I'm gonna be using whenever I travel, like in my recent Japan trip. Before eSIMs, people used to queue at airports to hunt for physical SIM cards. Ew. Barbaric. Or we would just accept insane roaming fees by telcos. But now, we have apps like Saily, which makes things super convenient. All I have to do is download the Saily app before my trip, choose my destination, pick a data plan, that's it. And just for my viewers, if you use the code SNEAKY at checkout, you get an exclusive 15% off. The best part about Saily is that once it's installed, you don't have to keep swapping SIM cards or install a new one every time you visit another country, because that's just super troublesome. Saily just activates when you land. Saily also offers affordable plans in over 200 destinations, so you avoid crazy roaming charges. They even have regional plans if you are planning to backpack across multiple countries. So if you or your family are traveling anytime soon, scan the QR code on screen right now to download the Saily app and use the code SNEAKY at checkout for 15% off. Getting lost in a mystery is fun, but getting lost in Shibuya Station, not so much. It is I! It's me, Sneaky Sushii, I'm back. And yes, I am in a Pope outfit. Is this what the Pope wears?
I have no idea.
Priest outfit.
So.
Because today's episode is, I need to bless you guys with some holy water. I'm here to bring light. Because tonight's episode is a little bit dark, a bit scary. Because we're talking about Asia's most disturbing possession case ever. Get a shot of this hat, look. The topic we're talking about is Clarita Villanova. Let's just dive right into it. Clarita Villanova was an 18-year-old girl from Manila, Philippines, and she had a really rough childhood. She was born into poverty, abandoned by her father, and went through the trauma of losing her mother when she was just 12 years old. But that's not all, because during this time, even her three elder brothers abandoned her, leaving her to fend for herself. I'm not sure why they just decided to leave her like that. Them bastard, eh? These fucking brothers abandon a young 12-year-old girl like that. She's your own sister. And this paved the way for her to descend into hardship and homelessness. And it's worth noting that her mother, Clarita's mother, was also a spiritist. I'm not super sure what a spiritist is or what that means, but I assume her mother was very into spiritual practices, perhaps even the occult, and she's known to be a fortune teller as well. Although Clarita never knew her father because he left the family when she was very young, she always wondered if he was still alive. So that's when she made the trip to Manila to look for her father. And it is here where she found herself trapped in the deep underbelly of Manila city. Life in the city was difficult for her. I mean, she was a teenager, had no money, and no one to really rely on. So it was a very tough environment for her back then in the 1950s in Philippines. So because of this hardship, she had to put aside the search for her father and had to work as a dance hostess at bars to survive. At just 18 years old, she would become a vagabond, hopping from place to sleep and finding work wherever she could. And unfortunately, this included sex work as well. And another thing worth noting that this isn't an isolated case in the Philippines. It was quite common back then in the 1950s because this was post-World War II. So there were a lot of juvenile delinquents, wayward girls, and just war orphans who were just left on the streets because there was also very little social welfare back then. On the 9th of May 1953, Clarita was unfortunately arrested during a police crackdown to clean up the streets of Manila, and she was subsequently placed in the old Bilibid prison. She was supposed to be just another anonymous case in an overcrowded system, but in just 2 days' time, something began to happen. Something that would blur the lines between belief, reality, and the supernatural world. On May 11th, just 2 days after her arrest, Clarita's nightmare began. It started in the middle of the night. Clarita and her cellmates were asleep when they were woken up by the strange sound of pebbles hitting the floor. Initially, she thought it was just someone throwing it at them through the prison bars, but Clarita and her cellmates saw no one there. Instinctively, Clarita shouted for the guards, who came rushing in, but they thought Clarita was just causing an unnecessary ruckus, so they demanded that she go back to sleep. So back to sleep she went. A few minutes passed, and Clarita was lying awake in her bed, and in that moment, right from the corner of her eye, Clarita noticed something directly above her. It was a dark figure watching her from the beams of the ceiling, and what she described next would define the entire case. Clarita said that a creature dropped onto her body, pinned her down, and started biting on her neck. I know that sounds a bit suggestive, but maybe it's just a horny demon. Why bite the neck? Maybe bite... Yeah, and actually anywhere else also it will be quite sexual. But this was only just the beginning, because apparently this demon really loved biting her. And it wasn't the only demon doing so, because Clarita actually saw 2 entities. And I am also going to take out this hat because my head is starting to get very hot. Sweating. Sister, leave the Pope's hat alone. So after the entity pounced on her, Clarita obviously began screaming. Her terrified screams had awoken her 2 cellmates, and this time, they saw Clarita struggling as if trying to fend off a wild animal on top of her. And I would imagine that would be quite a wild sight to behold. Imagine you're just sleeping, then you wake up to your cellmate, like going crazy, trying to fight off something that's not there.
It's not there. I mean,
Yeah,
I've
man.
never seen any self-possession cases before, but
Not in real life, like you haven't seen someone like say that they were being possessed.
I have heard marbles dropping on ceiling though.
Oh yeah, that's very common lah in
That's
Singapore.
quite a common occurrence in
Yeah,
Singapore.
especially maybe in HDBs. But they say there's a reason for that though, like it's the piping.
I live on the
above.
top floor though.
Probably a ghost then. You need me to lend you some ghost hunting equipment?
Nope, it's okay. I don't
I'll help
want
you
to
find
know.
out. The prison guards rushed in, and what they saw didn't make sense. Clarita insisted that she was attacked by 2 beings. One that was tall and large, had 2 sharp fangs, and was covered in dark curly hair on his head, chest, and arms. It sounds gross lah, to be honest. Imagine this dude falling on your face in the middle of the night. Tall, big, hairy guy with large fangs. The other one was a small figure, about 2 to 3 feet in height, or about half a meter to 1 meter. This small figure had snow white hair and a large mustache. I forgot I wrote that down, but now reading it, it sounds quite cute though. 1 meter tall guy, short and
Snow
fat,
White.
with large mustache. It sounds like a gnome. And the weird thing is, people actually picked up on Clarita's description because they are saying that she's actually describing 2 rather popular Filipino folklore creatures. And these creatures are the capre and the other one is the duende. Apologies to my Filipino viewers if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Here we have a picture of the capre, and he looks quite hot though. Quite a start, no?
Ew.
Quite handsome one, look at that. I don't know, or maybe the artist. I don't know why the artist decided to draw him like that.
I
But
don't like muscular men.
quite a start
No.
Smoking his pipe in the shadows of the trees.
He look like Tarzan.
Ultra hairy Tarzan. And the other one is, the duende. Yeah, it really does look like a garden gnome.
gnome. A hobbit.
I'm not so sure how this is scary though. It doesn't look very scary.
Or maybe just these pictures don't look scary.
Right.
Maybe in the folklore.
It's more
they are.
terrifying. So a little background on these creatures. The capres are known to be giant, dark-skinned, hairy humanoids who dwell in large trees. And funnily enough, the duende are also said to dwell in forests and on trees. So maybe these 2 demons, they met in a forest party, a demonic party in the forest, and then they said, hey, let's haunt this girl, let's haunt Clarita. Some people are also saying that the entity haunting Clarita was an aswang because she described it having 2 large fangs. And aswangs are a very popular category of folklore creature in Filipino folklore who are shape-shifting vampiric demons. The thing tormented Clarita every day, and it caused a huge stir in the prison. During these episodes, Clarita regularly convulsed and would helplessly cry in agony. In some moments, she would appear to be in a state of trance and suddenly become violent as if fighting invisible foes. According to witnesses and jailers who came to her aid each time it happened, humanoid bites that were impossible to self-inflict would materialize on her body. The marks were described as circular, red impressions resembling rows of teeth. They appeared on her arms, neck, and shoulders. I think the marks appearing on her body it's not such a big deal because one could say that she just biting, right?
Yeah.
But if this is true, if bite marks actually appeared on her neck,
How can she bite her own
how
neck?
does she bite her own neck?
Yeah,
You know,
that wouldn't be humanly possible.
yeah, unless her cellmates bit her, it'll be a different type of story. Throughout her entire ordeal, Clarita exhibited some truly bizarre behaviors. According to her cellmates, she drank from an empty cup when they refused to give her water. She also became intolerant of religious images and even attempted to smash a figure of the Virgin Mary displayed on a wall of her prison cell. She would laugh as if being tickled and shouted that the thing would kill her. Sounds a bit cliche, like very horror movie-esque. So
Yeah, but-
typical of a horror movie.
But why
you know?
are they refusing to give her water though?
Maybe not enough staff, because back then that prison was a very overcrowded place and
Oh,
the
okay.
reputation of it back
So
then
there's not
was
enough-
damn bad.
Not enough resources.
Not enough manpower, you know.
Okay.
HR getting a lot of complaints.
There.
Yeah. And then came the doctors, the science guys, who were all also reportedly perplexed by this strange situation. On the 18th of May, Clarita was brought in for a psychological evaluation in front of a slew of reporters, medical professionals, and politicians. And just as expected, Clarita flew into a violent fit, declaring that the thing was biting her. Even the mayor of Manila at the time, Arsenio Lacson, witnessed the impossible. He allegedly saw human teeth marks materializing on Clarita's neck and index finger. When Clarita was asked to draw the entities, they reported that the pencil flew out of her hands as if snatched from her by an invisible force.
Is there video evidence for this?
No, there isn't. I mean, it's 1950s, you know? No camera phones. And it's very easy to embellish stories.
You can
I would
exaggerate
imagine.
a lot
You can
of
exaggerate.
things.
So during this case, there was a lot of tabloid newspapers and very sensational headlines that were made because it was such a big case. So I guess a lot of tabloid newspapers would exaggerate and blow things out of proportion.
Create
Just to get
news.
views, you know?
Yeah.
Just to get reads and viewership on their newspapers. But there were also skeptics. The chief medical examiner, Dr. Mariano Lara, assumed that Clarita was simply injuring herself, which is the most plausible explanation. And I mean, me too, when I first read this case, I thought that the marks could easily be replicated by biting on your own arm. But I'm not so sure about the neck bites though. If it's actually true, then yeah, I don't know how to explain the bite marks on the neck. Dr. Lara's explanation was simple. Hysteria, possibly combined with self-inflicted wounds. However, that confidence began to crack when he witnessed an incident that he could not explain. During one examination, Clarita's hands were being physically held away from her mouth. In that moment, she screamed in pain, and when her hand was released, a new bite mark had appeared exactly where she said she had been bitten. Dr. Lara later admitted he could not explain how it was produced. If we take this doctor's word as it is, it's quite a what the fuck moment. You know, it's reported that he was holding her hands apart, but the
And
bite
then-
marks still appeared. Can't be the doctor go and bite her hand, right?
I mean, this
You
is
know?
based on his account. Of
It's a he said, she said kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think one thing to note that it's a doctor also. He has his reputation on the line. Would a doctor run his mouth like that? Unless there's a incentive for him to do so.
Unless they're trying to sell a story
Yeah.
right there.
And this moment became a turning point, not just for him, but for the entire case, because this case exploded across the press. Headlines escalated from skepticism to sensationalism. Over 100 witnesses, including reporters, medical interns, and officials who saw Clarita, would eventually claim to have seen some version of these events. Clarita's condition worsened. She fell into trances more often, convulsed repeatedly, and spoke of her attackers in vivid detail. And this next part is probably the creepiest part of the story, but I have to say it is unverified, so take it with a pinch of salt. It is said that 2 days before Clarita's psych evaluation, a doctor named Manuel Ramos came to interview her, but he was unconvinced that she was actually being possessed by demons. So he accused Clarita of faking the attacks to gain attention. And this pissed off Clarita, or the demons inside of her, because she stared at the doctor with sinister eyes and told him that he would die. And true to her word, Dr. Ramos, a perfectly healthy man, died of a heart attack the following day. So she basically put a death curse on him. But I couldn't really find an obituary, or a report of a Dr. Ramos dying while investigating this Clarita case, but I just thought it was an interesting story to put in. And when all hope seemed lost, a new figure entered the story, and this is where everything changed. Cue Lester Sumrall, an American Protestant evangelist who was in the Philippines at the time building a church for his members. He had heard about Clarita's case on the radio, and he had a determined answer to this very bizarre case. To him, this wasn't any sort of medical illness. It was clearly a case of, I think you guys know where this is going, demonic possession. And he had a cure because he was a pastor. He was gonna cast the demon out in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. What?
Can you say that? Is it really just...
He is gonna cast the demons out in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, our holy Lord and Savior.
Okay, sure.
Lester Sumrall believed that he alone could cast out the demons out of Clarita's body in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, Lord Jesus Christ. And because Clarita's case was such big news by now, dozens of reporters, doctors, and prison staff came to witness the exorcism. And actually, first thought, now that I'm reading this, there's an incentive for him to do so, right? Because he's a pastor, he knows it's a big case. Perhaps he can get some, I don't know, clout, get some fame.
More clients.
More clients.
Possession case to exorcise.
Yeah.
I see where this is going.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Here's what's strange, because it was reported that Clarita's reaction to Lester was immediate and hostile. One of the things she did was to scream and curse at him in English, which is a language that she supposedly wasn't fluent in, as she only knew how to speak Tagalog, one of the main languages in the Philippines.
Maybe this Lester is the final boss.
For the
That's why
demons.
for the demons.
They know, they sense his aura. Oh no, it's Pastor Lester Sumrall. No!
Or maybe like in the past when they possess other people, they met him before. Then this is like the next
It's him again.
It's like, oh my god, you're here.
Lester. I wonder how drastic the change in her English was though. Yet some reports say she didn't know how to speak English at all. Some reports say she knew but just wasn't fluent. I don't know, maybe she's saying in a Filipino like accent, like very, very painful, all the bite marks, very painful. Then suddenly Lester comes. You motherfucker. Hey Lester. However, Lester, upon seeing this, was unbothered. I guess by now he has seen a few cases of demonic possessions already, so he was unbothered by this, and he continued on with the exorcism. And as the session continued, Clarita alternated between calmness and violent outbursts, at times praising religious figures and moments later cursing them. To Lester, however, this was proof. He interpreted this fluctuation as spiritual conflict, that Clarita was having an internal battle against these demonic forces. Over 2 days, Lester prayed, commanded, and confronted these supposed entities, alternating between singing sacred songs and commanding the devils to depart in the name of Christ. See? I told you. In the name of Christ, get out of Clarita's body, you bitches.
Why does it have to be Christ?
Then what, Kuan Yin Ma?
Yeah.
In the name of Kuan Yin Ma, like, get out?
Yeah.
Actually, technically you can also, I guess. Different religions use different gods, right? When I was researching this, 70 to 80% of the population in Philippines is Catholics. Yeah.
Catholic.
Roman Catholics. I'm neither, but that's why I think. Mine? Is it?
What?
You're Roman Catholic. I
What?
think because Our dad was Catholic. Oh, I'm a Roman Catholic too. Yay. That's nice.
So you
Fitting.
never knew that you're Catholic?
Witnesses claim they saw Clarita convulse, scream, and speak unintelligibly. Fresh bite marks also appeared on her skin during these sessions. And in the final episode, Clarita had allegedly grasped a handful of coarse black hair from the air.
What? Hair just appeared?
I don't know how this works. Yeah, the stories say that somehow she managed to grab a handful of hair from the air. So Dr. Lara, the doctor that we were talking about before, he actually took a sample of this hair under a microscope and concluded that the hair wasn't human. And he was also certain that it didn't belong to Clarita. So again, this is the words of Dr. Lara. But all I'm saying is, he's saying some very crazy shit, man. This doctor, sounding very unhinged. But again, he's a doctor, so I don't know. I'm conflicted. I don't know. What do you think? Do you believe Dr. Lara? After these sessions, the demonic attacks lessened. Clarita herself reported that the beings had left through the window. And just like that, possession was over. Clarita recovered and she was eventually released. She moved back to her hometown, lived in anonymity after marrying a rice farmer and having 2 children with him. As for Lester Sumrall, this was a huge victory. His church had gained significant attention and thousands reportedly converted in the aftermath. This story became a cornerstone of his ministry. And now we move on to the theories. What could possibly explain this truly bizarre case? Perhaps Clarita was really possessed by a demonic force. Given the strong Catholic influence in 1950s Philippines, many interpreted Clarita's experiences as a real demonic possession. Clarita was also described being tormented by 2 invisible demons that both resemble 2 very specific folklore creatures in the Philippines. Clarita also miraculously recovered after the exorcism by Pastor Lester Sumrall. And in this view, the attacks are framed as genuine supernatural events. There were also dozens of witnesses, prison guards, inmates, doctors, and visitors who all witnessed bite marks forming on Clarita's body seemingly without physical cause. In fact, many people today still believe that Clarita was truly possessed by demonic entities. Do you believe in demonic possessions? When people say they get possessed or when you hear stories of people being possessed, do you think it's real?
No.
Like something went in their body?
No. I feel that most people that say they got possessed or like something is happening shows certain symptoms of wanting attention.
Oof. I get that sentiment too though. I also kind of see that.
It's also because it's coming from my own experience of not really experiencing any of this.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, I do understand that, it's just in my head.
So you think Clarita is an attention-seeking whore?
I don't think she's an attention-seeking whore. I don't doubt her own experience. Maybe she was going through some
To her,
stuff.
it was real.
Yeah, to her, it could be real. Or she's just experiencing a lot of hysteria. The accounts of, those bite marks and all, maybe somebody paid the doctor off to try to, create a story. Maybe they're just trying to sensationalize the whole thing. Maybe the publishers paid the doctor off. I mean, you never know.
Which will bring us to our next 2 theories that Annabelle mentioned. Theory 2, natural phenomena. Another theory is that Clarita experienced a psychological episode. Many medical professionals concluded that Clarita's symptoms were the result of hysteria, like you said, or psychological disorders triggered by extreme stress. Her traumatic background of poverty and instability could have created the perfect conditions for a mental breakdown. Remember, she was orphaned at 12 years old, very young, and her brothers abandoned her. She had a very traumatic past. The initial possession event in the jail cell also kind of resembles sleep paralysis, a state where a person feels a presence, is unable to move, and experiences vivid hallucinations. The bite marks could have been self-inflicted during dissociation or a psychosomatic response. So psychosomatic responses are real, tangible symptoms where the mind-body connection manifests emotional strain as bodily pain, like migraines or skin conditions. So basically, the brain sends signals to the body that cause physical changes like skin rash, heart diseases, or headaches, or in Clarita's case, scratches and marks on her body. So this theory suggests that because she was under so much distress, mental pain, internal pain, that these stresses and these signals manifest as scratches or marks on her body.
I have heard before that like people that genuinely believe that they were pregnant.
Became pregnant?
No, they didn't become pregnant, but like they experienced all the symptoms of being pregnant.
Like nausea.
Yeah, like they genuinely believed
that's
or like
interesting.
they
I never heard
really
of that
wanted
before.
to, and then they started experience all the symptoms, but they were actually not pregnant.
I really do believe that our mind has a very strong way to influence our physical body. It's like whenever you're in a period of your life where you are very stressed or very anxious, whether because of work, maybe a big relationship problem, my immune system tends to become lower and I get sick more easily, you know? When your mind is weak, your body is weak.
When I had my skin condition like eczema as well, when stress comes,
it flares up.
Blows up.
Oh, really? That's so interesting. Theory 3. Media sensationalism. So this is something very important to note, that a lot of the dramatic details of this case comes from sensational news reports, like I mentioned earlier, or from Lester Sumrall himself, which could have coloured the public's perception on this case and overshadowed more grounded medical explanations. Lester also had a huge incentive for painting this picture in a way that benefits him. So he claimed that he didn't ask for anything in return and was merely doing God's work. But he later admits that the mayor, Arsenio Luxon, awarded him a construction permit with all administrative charges waived to build the Manila Bethel Temple, which is now called Cathedral of Praise. And I actually did some googling of this Cathedral of Praise. Apparently it's one of the largest mega churches in the Philippines with 24,000 members and more than 10 branches across the country. So I guess it's a success. He did get his name out there and he built this amazing big church. Sumrall's ministry grew overnight and gained free publicity on various platforms due to the exorcism. He even wrote a book on the subject detailing the exorcism. Even the mayor was in on this sensationalism, claiming that Sumrall was able to expel a total of 15 demons out of Clarita. But the weird thing is, the mayor wasn't even there on the final exorcism.
So it's still a he say, she say.
So it's still a he say, she said kind of thing, and it kind of points to the fact that even the mayor is hyping up this case, is trying to sensationalize it.
Become 15.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not so sure what his motive is, why he's trying to hype up Sumrall like that. Maybe they're in cahoots or they're helping each other.
They get
kind of thing. Of what? The church?
Whatever.
The tithes?
The earnings that they get.
Perhaps. Yeah, even Dr. Lara, it is said that he was also compromised by the belief, like he really wanted to believe that it was a demonic possession.
So he was blinded by faith.
So that's why, we have to take his words with a pinch of salt as well. For me, I do think it's a combination of all three theories, and including theory 1, where real demons possessed her. And let me explain why. I think Clarita probably genuinely believed that demons were possessing her. Perhaps she was already mentally fragile, and being thrown in jail caused her to snap. Perhaps she then started hearing voices in her head. But whether they were demons or not, don't know. Could be just a mental breakdown. But to her, it was real demons. And in such a state, when an authoritative figure like a revered pastor comes in to heal her, she would believe that she was being cured, especially in that suggestible state. Something worth noting is that Clarita was not completely faithless. So the role that Lester Sumrall played in healing Clarita cannot be dismissed, because I do think that he actually healed her. Clarita thinks that she's being possessed by real demons, and an authoritative figure like a revered pastor coming in to cast the demons out. If she believed that, she would be healed. And I think the power of prayer is also a very powerful thing. You can call it prayer, you can call it affirmations or mantras. It's all the same thing, and it all has significant psychological effects, whether in helping reduce stress or just having a more positive outlook. So maybe during these sessions, because the pastor kept praying for her, saying kind words of affirmations to her, she believed that the demons got casted out, and then poof, she cured herself. Like we were saying, like mind over body. Like the patient believes that they are being haunted by a demon, then this dude comes in to cast the demon.
Very exaggerated.
Yeah, the more elaborate the ritual, the more believable. The more they'll believe. Yeah, so they cure themselves. Do you think that's what most possessions are about? But hey, what do I know? I don't even know I'm a Roman Catholic. So yeah, I think Lester Sumrall basically provided the psychological closure Clarita needed to recover. And that's how she healed. Thank you so much for watching tonight's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, consider subscribing and liking this video. Let me know what other topics you guys would like me to talk about. And I'll see you guys very soon. Have a blessed week ahead. Sprinkle some holy water on your... Because I'm a Roman Catholic. Have a blessed week, guys. Maybe I shouldn't do this hand sign.